You are watching the New American Media. Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, Los Angeles to be specific. Hello and welcome to the Unhappy Hour. My name is Brian Engelman and I will be your host today. We're going to be talking sports. Got a lot going on in the NBA. This is really one of those months after the Super Bowl, before spring training really gets going, before the NFL draft, before March Madness. This is just that downtime in between. But you had a lot of stuff going on this past week. The NBA trade deadline, you had that come and go. Who won out on those deals? Well, we're going to talk about it. We're going to bring in NBA scout and lifetime Cleveland sports fan Zak Baris. You can follow him on Twitter at ZBaris, Z-B-A-R-I-S. Go do so. We're going to talk about the All-Star game, the trades. We're actually even going to look forward to next year and even the year after that. Who's a free agent in 2014? Oh, that's a big class of people. Who's that one guy? He who shall not be named. What's that one guy who used to play for one of my favorite teams? Well, my favorite basketball team, the Cleveland Cavaliers. What was that guy's name? Oh, that's it. LeBron James. Having a crazy season right now. Really putting up numbers that are unprecedented with shooting percentage and points and whatnot. So we'll talk about the draft class of 2013 and 2014, just kind of get a general lay of the land of who could be moving, because in the NBA, what's really important is a long-term strategy. You try to do too much too quick, you can be perpetually mediocre. Oh yeah, well the Miami Heat, it took them a couple of years to clear all their cap space to make it all happen. So it does take time to build your super teams. So we'll talk about that and definitely break down Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving in the Rising Stars game. I mean, kid was lights out. Then he wins the three-point shootout, and then he played a solid game in the All-Star game. So we'll talk about all these things with Zach. So without further ado, we're going to bring him into the program.
Hello?
Hey, Zach, you're live. Welcome back to the program. How are you doing today?
Good. How about yourself?
Living the dream, best as you can. Put on the happy face, fake it till you make it, all those types of things. And, I'm doing, let's just say I'm doing as well as Kyrie Irving, because there are three things I want to get into today, and I think what we should do is split them up into three little chunks. First, I want to talk about Kyrie and his coming out party, I guess you could say, his introduction to the rest of the league, because he doesn't get a lot of opportunities to do that on a lousy team, but the NBA All-Star Weekend gave him that chance. Then after that, I want to break down the trades at this deadline, who won, who lost, who surprisingly didn't get traded, and that type of stuff. And then maybe in the third segment, we can just look forward to 2013 and 2014 and see who might be moving in a long-term strategy down the road. So let's talk about Kyrie first. What did you make of his appearance in All-Star Weekend, from the Rising Stars game to the three-point shootout to the All-Star game in general?
It's certainly impressive, to say the least. He helped put Cleveland on the map. It's exactly what he said. He said, I'm here to put Cleveland on the map. That's what he did. He won the three-point contest. Almost broke the record in doing it, too. Had he not missed the last rack, a couple of them on the last rack, he probably would have, he would have definitely broken it. I mean, he made 17 of his first 18. He looks phenomenal there. He looked unbelievable in the rookie game, even though they got their butts kicked in the game, But, like I said, there's no defense in that game anyways, but he looked great. I have to say, I came away impressed. He even looked really good in the All-Star game. I think he put up 15 points, in limited minutes. It's unfortunate he didn't start because of Eric Spoelstra, but... Yeah,
that was pretty weak. That was weak.
Yeah, it really was. I don't like the move. I don't agree with it. I think, you're meant to start a point guard in there. LeBron's a forward. Start him as a forward. And I think it was a weak move, but...
Did you make anything of that? Because some people were saying, well, Spoelstra doesn't want to put LeBron in there with Kyrie, because if they develop a chemistry, then they're going to decide to bring him out to Cleveland.
LeBron doesn't need to play with Kyrie Irving in an All-Star game to learn that he's got chemistry with the kid. He really likes him, as a person. They're close friends.
Yeah.
He knows what he's played with Kyrie before. Don't forget, they were playing together on Team USA over the summertime.
That's right. He was an alternate, right?
What?
He was an alternate, Kyrie.
Yeah. he knows Kyrie Irving's potential, what it already is, you know. And like I said, I don't think playing with him in the All-Star game is not going to affect him and go, oh God, you know, this is a guy I have to team up with in, 17, 18 months from now, because he's going to be sitting there. I'm going to be a free agent. I remember he threw me 2 alley-oops in the All-Star game. It's not what he's thinking. He knows how good of a talent Kyrie Irving is. It's not, it doesn't matter. I think Spoelstra just wanted the Miami Heat to get all the exposure. Can't blame the guy for wanting to do that. I don't like it. It was a very unpopular move, but I don't think he wanted to showcase Kyrie. I think he wanted to showcase Chris Bosh and the Big Three.
Yeah, and that's fair. And he did do that. And he earned the right to because they have the ring.
It would have been a little awkward, too, had he not started Bosh because he's Bosh's coach.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all the All-Star games, whether it's a Yankees coach or somebody or whether you go into football, whoever's running the teams, there's tons of criticism. Who plays X amount of minutes, who starts, and if it's not predetermined by a fan vote or something, there's always constant criticism there. But I mean, we all know Kyrie has been good. We all know that he's a massive talent, and in hindsight, despite the fact that he can be fragile at times, getting hurt at Duke and then breaking his hand and having some injury issues, the kid, I think he really stepped up his game under the bright lights and kind of realize. I think he even needed to realize that he was this good on that stage. Do you think this was an important moment for him, or do you think he's always? I don't know.
I think he's always looked great. Don't forget. I mean, when he was at Duke a couple of years ago, he didn't have a lot of exposure because, like I said, he only played in 11 games at Duke, I believe. And I remember sitting there watching him against. I was at Arizona Duke a few years ago. In Anaheim at the Honda Center, and I remember just watching that game and. Everyone on Duke, Kyle Singler, no one impressed me on Duke. I was really Nolan Smith, no one impressed me but Kyrie Irving. And I remember someone going, if the Cavaliers get the number 1 overall pick, I remember these kids behind us going, if the Cavs get the number 1 overall pick, they have to take Derek Williams. And I'm looking at myself as an Arizona alum, and I go, are you kidding me? I go, unless the guy's a reincarnation of LeBron James, which he's not, I go, this is the point where LeBron hadn't won a championship. I go, right. You can't just build around a small forward. You need to start this. The point guard-driven league. You need to draft the point guard. And someone goes, there's no way he's going to be a star. He's an average player. I go, the kid has played 1 game since he came back from his injury where he missed the entire season, just dropped 30 points on Arizona, even though Duke would have lost by 50 if it wasn't for him. And I remember just looking at him, I go, he's unbelievably skilled. He's an amazing shooter. He's only going to get better. And I can't think of how good Kyrie Irving will be in 3 to 5 years from now. His game has just, he's taken a huge leap forward from last year. His turnovers are down. Yeah, his assists are only at around 5.5 a game, but that's expected when you don't have really a number 2 option other than Deion Waiters. They don't have a legitimate number 2 option behind Kyrie Irving. Bergeau's out. They don't have a guy that can consistently put up 20 points a game. They just don't have it.
Well, and it's certainly not going to be a Tristan Thompson free throw contest. Jeez.
Well, yeah. And if you watched the Hornets-Cavs game the other night,
I did.
Kyrie Irving took over in the fourth quarter. He put up, I think, 20 or 22
points
in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, maybe 22. I think he set a Cavs record for points in a quarter.
I just said to myself, I remember just sitting there watching the TV and just saying, damn. That was the only thing I could even say. It was so impressive to watch him go off like that. And he did it on national TV. And for people who normally don't watch the Cavs out here, I can just tell by the people I follow on Twitter that I'm from Cleveland just talking about it going, wow, he really is that good.
Right.
He's a star. There's no doubt about it. When he eventually, when Deion Waiters improves, Deion Waiters shown significant improvement over the past month. He stepped up his game. He's looking a lot better. He's looking like the guy who has, a really nice future in this league now. Like I said, at other times, I've seen him, I go, okay, I think he's a 6th man on a really good team, and now I'm starting to look at him and I view him more as a more as a starting 2 guard. He's definitely impressed me of what I've seen as of late from Deion.
Yeah, and they need to settle into their roles. They got to get comfortable. There's a lot of young players.
He's having a better rookie season than James Harden had. I'm just saying, not saying he's going to be the next James Harden, but gives a chance a kid to develop. I mean, it's a guy who never started a collegiate game. Hasn't started a game since high school. And all of a sudden he's going up against these big guys. He's taking some awkward shots, but he's been driving the ball more to the basket more over the past month. He hasn't been taking those awkward jumpers, where he's double teamed. He's been dishing up. His assists are up. His rebounds are up. Like I said, he's a decent defender. I fully expect that he can be a number 2 option for the Cavaliers next season, and I hope he will be.
Well, and I think that
it'll definitely make Kyrie look better having someone in the backcourt he can share. He can share the ball with. Like I said, it's a good fit for Kyrie. I think, like I said, the Cavs are very young. He doesn't really have a lot of options, but he's such an efficient scorer, and he'll only get better if they, like I said, if they're able to add a Ben McLemore, Shabazz Muhammad next year, in the draft, if they choose to go that route of drafting, a guy like Muhammad who will play the 2 but could be out of position playing the 3 next year because they don't have a 3 on the roster. And eventually one of those guys slides into a 6-man role, or you can, you have the option to trade one of them someday for a different piece. And, I think the Cavaliers next year, I honestly believe they're going to fill in part of the roster next year. I think they're going to try to contend for the playoffs because there's no way they're going to be bad enough next year. It just can't happen if Kyrie Irving's healthy for an 82-game season. I can't see the Cavaliers being the second or third worst team in the league. So that automatically eliminates Andrew Wiggins, Jabari Parker, and one of the Harrison twins. It eliminates your 3 top picks.
You know what I just thought there, though, Zach, as you said that I wanted to jump in and reply, well, yeah, if Anderson Varejao is healthy for a season. Yeah, well, if Travis Hafner is healthy for a season. Well, if Grady Sizemore is healthy for a season. And I just thought of all these players that coulda, woulda, shoulda, and Kyrie's already been injured quite a few times. But, I mean, I think...
He's been healthy this entire year, though. I mean, other than when he broke his jaw and was out for a couple games. But he's been healthy relatively the entire season, knock on wood here.
After the hand injury, yes, after the hand injury in the summer.
He's been, he broke his jaw. I mean, that's why he was wearing the mask. So, right. For a while. But, he was out for, I think 2 or 3 games there. But he's been relatively healthy this year. He's staying on the court. And like I said, it just happens when you're a smaller guy. The hand injury is a fluke. That can happen to anyone. He slammed his hand against a mat and it broke. He fractured in a couple places. That happens. Those mats are hard. There's wood underneath him. I saw what's behind him. There's just wood. So it's a small little piece of, padding with wood right behind it. When you hit your hand against a piece of plywood, it's not exactly always, in the way you hit it, you're probably going to break it maybe 2 out of 10 times.
Well, you're right. Look, you're right. I think that if things go decent, you're looking at a playoff team last year. But I said that about this year too. And then Varejao went down and never really recovered. But
almost, I hate to say this, but Varejao going down is almost been the best thing for this team. It's helped them stay at a lower record so they can dry their draft in Nerlens Noel, a Ben McLemore, Shabazz Muhammad type. They weren't good enough to make the 8th seed this year. They just weren't. The bench is terrible. So they weren't going to be in the 8th seed this year either. So you had to worry about this team winning 33 to 34 games, which would just basically put them in no man's land, that's exactly where you don't want to be in this day and age as NBA. It doesn't get you anywhere. Next year, now, if they go and win 41, 42 games next year, it puts them in a nice spot because they have Kyrie Irving to be able to pitch to free agents, saying, come here and play with me. Honestly, and like I said, as we've talked about the subject 100 times before, but then LeBron goes, okay, if they're a 42-win team without me, they've got a young Dion Waiters, they've got a young, let's just say they have Nerlens Noel, they've got a young Nerlens Noel, they've got a good young team, I don't, maybe they'll have Trey Burke as the backup point guard next year if the Lakers are, fortunate to make the playoffs. You could be sitting with a roster next year of Kyrie Irving, Trey Burke, Dion Waiters, Alonzo G, and then you have all of a sudden you've got LeBron plugged back in at the 3. You've got Thompson at the 4, and either Varejao or they make a trade. Like I said, do they go after the Kevin Love type in a trade? They're going to have the assets to pull off a trade like that. Don't forget, Varejao is a huge trade chip.
Right.
He still is, and he's coveted around the league. And they have a ton of picks over the next, 4 years to give up. 8 first-rounders over the next 4 years. I cannot see them trading a top 5 pick in this year's draft, though, for any player. I think they're going to sit on, and I think they're going to either draft, like I said, if they're fortunate enough to be drafting in the top 5, and they have their shot at McLemore, Muhammad, Anthony Bennett, or Nerlens Noel, they're going to select one of those guys. Even though I don't think Bennett's a great fit in the Cavaliers' scheme right now because he's more of a 4. He'd be playing out of position at the 3. But he's so skilled and so good, over at UNLV. I think, he's one of those guys where if he's just there, you have to take him.
Well, let me walk backward on 2 points here because you mentioned that the Cavs bench was pretty lousy. After the trade, the bench is looking a lot better than it did. Is it great? I wouldn't call it great, but it's a lot better than it was. But let me take.
No. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's basically you've gone from. It's basically like a guy who's just improving in school. He went from an F average and now he's at a D average. It's better. but it's still not at the point where they have legitimate pieces. You're looking at a team that, traded J.J. Hickson for Omri Cassie. Cassie doesn't play. Boogie Gibson doesn't play. Luke Walton shouldn't be in the NBA, but like I said, he's really, really bad. But he hasn't looked terrible in the last couple of weeks. He's been playing significant minutes and doesn't look entirely awful.
I love that compliment. I love that compliment. He doesn't look completely terrible over the past couple of weeks. I love that compliment.
He's not a good player, though, by any means. This is a guy past his prime. He hasn't had a good year in 5-6 years now. And like I said, there's no reason in my mind for Luke Walton to even be playing. If I'm Byron Scott, I'm still playing Omri Caspi on him because Caspi's younger. Luke Walton does not have a future within this league. I don't know what Byron Scott season. Maybe he likes his hustle and tenacity, but like I said, the guy, he's not getting any better, and he's a free agent at the end of the year. He's leaving. Don't forget, the Cavaliers desperately tried to buy out Luke Walton at the beginning of the year and were unable to. They couldn't even throw him in as an expiring contract into a trade.
Jeez.
That's how bad he was.
Well, let me back up one more step further. Let's go from a guy past his prime to the guy in his prime. Let's bring it back full circle here and wrap up on Kyrie. Where do you think his ceiling lies? Because he obviously won the three-point shootout. He had a good Rising Stars game. He had a solid All-Star game. And then he went lights out crazy. What was it, 35 points against New Orleans a couple days ago? And he just looked phenomenal with 20, 22 points in the fourth quarter. What is the ceiling for Kyrie Irving, realistically? What are we looking at?
I honestly don't know what ceiling he has. Like I said, he's not as good of a passer as Chris Paul because, I don't like the Chris Paul comparison because Paul is definitely a much more efficient passer. He's a better passer, and granted, he's on a better team. If Kyrie Irving's definitely a better scorer, though. He has a better drive to the rim. He can get to the basket, a lot better than Chris Paul. He's an amazing three-point shooter. He's an incredible foul shooter. And when you have a game like that, his defense needs to step up, though. If he can step up his defensive game, he'll easily be the best point guard in the league in 2 years from now, I think.
Well, remember, it took LeBron a little while to get his defense down. And when he did, he was the best. I think he was the best defensive player in the league for a couple of years. He didn't win the award, but I felt he could have.
I still remember saying 2 years ago, I've never seen a point guard with the drive that Derrick Rose has to get to the rim. I've never seen that. I've never seen that ever. I've never seen someone get there with such ease. Be able to dribble through traffic, through 3 or 4 guys, and be able to get to the rim and dunk the ball. I've never seen anything like that.
Until Uncle Drew.
Exactly. And, that's why it's so impressive. When people always ask me, they go, who are your top 5 points? And I remember I said at the beginning of the year, I had Kyrie in my top 3. I had him above Darren Williams. And people are like, what? The people are going, what is wrong with you? I said, trust me. I watched the kid play this summer in Vegas. I saw him play. I said, trust me, he's a top 3 point guard in this league, whether you like it or not. And I go, I'm not being a homer here. I go, I do not work for the Cavaliers. I'm just saying from what I've seen, he is unbelievable. I said, just trust me on that one. And now everybody's going, oh, he really is good. Granted, I think Darren Williams is having a bad year. I think he's just playing hurt. And like I said, he may have been playing overweight. So it's just unfortunate for him.
Well, do you think Kyrie could eventually become an MVP in the NBA? Do you think he's that good?
I do. I do think he could be an MVP in this league. I truly do.
Well, based on what we saw at All-Star Weekend, I mean, it was 1, 2, 3 lights out. The kid was just stepping up under the brightest lights out there, and this is only year 2. He can't even buy a beer yet. I mean, remember we were saying that about LeBron how many years ago? Oh, the kid can't even buy a beer. I mean, but when you identify talent that good, that young, hey, the sky's the limit.
The Cavaliers clearly landed a star in a draft where, all the analysts were going, and I still remember watching this, like it was yesterday when they were all saying, there's not going to be any star in this draft. Derrick Williams is going to be a more athletic Danny Granger, and Kyrie Irving will be the next Kevin Johnson. I recall those words being said about 100 times on ESPN, with them saying that Kyrie Irving will be a more, maybe a little more athletic version of Kevin Johnson.
Hey,
Kevin Johnson, don't get me wrong,
was KJ was good.
League. But Kevin Johnson wasn't by any means, I mean, people were calling it, I still remember the reports on him. If you go to do the 2010. If you have whatever year he was drafted, 2011 draft, I think it was. If you go and look at it and you type it in and go 2010 ESPN NBA mock draft lottery, if you go to do it, and the Cavaliers, if you read the bio on Kyrie Irving, it'll say he might not ever be an all-star, but he'll be a very efficient point guard in this league. We're talking a year into his career, he's already an all-star.
Right.
We're looking at this kid being a 10 to 15-time all-star if everything stays on track, which he probably will be. I don't really see any more talent that's going to be better than him. One of the Harrison twins, who's going to be at Kentucky next year, he's a 6'5" guard. He has great potential because he's 6'5", so much length. But like I said, I want to see him play in college before I go and compare him to any other point guard in the NBA. It's too hard to do that right now. But like I said, he has a chance to be just as good, if not better, than Chris Paul in 2 years. And I think Chris Paul is the best point guard in the NBA. I think he has the chance. Do I think he's better than Tony Parker? I think he's right on the same level as Tony Parker right now. They have different styles of game. Parker's a much better defender. But I think Kyrie's offensive game is better than Tony Parker's.
It was unreal watching him against the Hornets.
It's hard to say that he's better than these guys because, like I said, Kyrie's on such an awful team. But the thing is, it's not like he's sitting there taking 30 shots a game, 35 shots a game. He's putting up 35 points a game on over 50% shooting, which is just incredibly impressive for a point guard, especially when he's receiving a lot of double teams. You have guys on the floor with him like Luke Walton that cannot shoot. Tyler Zeller, who's been constantly missing 18-foot jumpers year-round. Granted, that will come in. Zeller will improve, but, he just needs to work on it for an offseason. He's a rookie. But, that's what I'm saying here is I think Kyrie's potential is sky high, and especially if you pair him with someone, like I said, it's a dream scenario, and every Cleveland fan should want it to happen. If you can pair him with LeBron James in a year and a half, go ahead and do it. It's going to be one of the best. It's going to be one of the most exciting duos to ever watch in NBA history if it happens.
I can't argue with that. That would be unreal. The way that Kyrie drives and slashes, it would be amazing to team him with LeBron. What did you think of the ankle breaker on Brandon Knight over the All-Star weekend?
I was just sitting there. I was like, oh my God. I was so impressed. And like I said, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to be at the 3-point contest last week in Houston. I didn't make it in time for the rookie game, for the rookie sophomore game. I did not make it. But, I was watching it on TV at that point. And like I said, it was awesome. Brandon Knight is a talented player. He's more of a tweener guard, but like I said, he's still a decent player in this league. He's definitely made the Pistons a lot better than they were. And to watch Kyrie Irving do that, it was just, I'd never, you really don't ever see stuff like that anymore.
He brought out the ankle breakers. He brought out the 3-point shot. He brought out the mid-range game. He brought out some of the slashing moves. The kid just showed up, and I was really impressed. There's nothing the kid
doesn't have. He's got enough speed. He will eventually be a good defender in this league. Like I said, though, it takes time. You're not going to suddenly have an all-around game overnight. It doesn't happen. It takes time. Improvement is you gradually improve. You're not. This isn't NBA 2K where if you're playing overnight, you get a lot of skill points. You're not suddenly adding them all to his on-ball defense, and then suddenly he's a great defender overnight. It doesn't happen like that. It takes off seasons to improve. It takes in-game play. Next year I fully expect him to be a better defender. He's already a better defender than he was last year.
Well, you would hope so. And Byron Scott, knowing the position so well, and you think of Tristan Thompson, you think about Tyler Zeller, you think about that, and you're like, okay, so Byron Scott's kind of working with the point guard. You got Zydrunas Ilgauskas working with the big men. That's not bad. If you think about who's coaching him to get better.
Zeller's a finesse center. I fully expect him to improve. He's not going to be a starting center in this league. Zeller's not one of those guys. Don't forget where he was drafted. He was not drafted at number 4 or 5. This is a guy who I believe was 17. And you have to take it for what it is. If you get a quality backup center at 17, that's great. It's better than having a Cole Aldrich type who you draft in the 20s, that sits and rots on your bench for an entire career. Like I said, it's just, I like Tyler Zeller's potential. The guy still can't get a defensive rebound for his life. But that should change. Let him bulk up in the weight room. Let him work for a year with Zydrunas, and then we'll see some improvement.
Well, I think we will, and I think the Cavs
to come in this league, against a bunch of big-bodied guys and come in there and be able to compete. It's very tough.
Well, I think the Cavs are going to be competing pretty well in this second half. I think they let a lot of close ones get away in the first half. Yeah, they've had their injury problems, but who doesn't? It's professional sports.
But, their benches look better. Wayne Ellington was a nice addition to the bench. He didn't play a lot in Memphis, but he's looked decent in the Cavaliers uniform so far, I have to say, from watching him. in limited action so far. And Maurice Spates, I love Spates, what he can do. He helps space the floor for the Cavs. He can take that nice 15, 18-foot jumper any day. He gets to the line. He's a fantastic free throw shooter. He shoots in the mid-80s, from the line, which is great. Like the other night, he went 3 for 13 shooting, but he still had 17 points. He was getting the line, so his true shooting percentage was up there. And that's what matters most. People always tend to take a look at, they go, oh, this guy's a 37% shooter. And I go, you have to take a look at the true shooting percentage from a player. It just matters how often they get to the line. That's what matters the most. It doesn't matter what a player's shooting percentage is. It just matters what their true shooting is. And that's, I don't want to get into analytics here, but I'm saying that's what matters the most. And Spates is having a fantastic year. I've always liked him as a player. I know some people don't, but I think he's a nice offensive complement to have with Kyrie Irving and definitely playing with the second team too. The Cavaliers have been very, very competitive since they've acquired him.
Absolutely. And I'm really looking forward to this second half. It was nice seeing him on national TV. It was nice seeing Kyrie come out, and it's just so much youth on the Cavs team. So I'm looking forward to it. But let's. And
I believe Bulls Cavs. I think Bulls Cavs. I think next Wednesday. I think that might be nationally televised too. Don't get me wrong, but I think it might be nationally televised too.
Well, the way that Kyrie lit it up, I mean, just you look at Twitter and all the love he's getting there, the hundreds of thousands of retweets and just the love he's getting nationally now. I think the Cavs are on their way to getting back on TV finally. It's been a long year.
I think next year you'll see some. I think depending on what they do this offseason, I think if they're able to trade, especially for a star like a Kevin Love type. Like I said, I don't know if it's going to happen, but like I said, Love will be available in trade. I do believe because Minnesota doesn't want to lose him in free agency a year later. Like I said, is that one? I think the Cavaliers have the assets to pull off a deal. They have the draft picks. They definitely have it.
Yeah, they're stacked.
If you're trying to lure LeBron back to town, I think that's the way you go and do it, is by adding him or trying to make an attempt to acquire a nice piece to surround basically a secondary or a tertiary piece around Kyrie Irving and what will hopefully eventually be LeBron for the Cavs.
We're talking with NBA scout and lifetime Cleveland sports fan Zak Baris. You can follow him on Twitter. He's at ZBaris. That's ZBARIS. And, earlier in the show, Zach, I mentioned that maybe we'll talk about 2013, 2014 free agents. But what I'm thinking is maybe we should push that off to next week and do a full show on it because the All-Star festivities will be behind us. The trade deadline will be behind us, and then maybe we could just focus on that for next week. So I'm saying what we should do is take a hard reset here, shift gears a little bit away from Kyrie Irving and his mammoth ceiling potential to potentially become an NBA MVP in this league. But I think what we should do is break down the NBA trade deadline deals, the ones that happened and the ones that didn't happen. Does that sound all right with you?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, you are listening to thenewamericanmedia.com. I'm your host, Brian Engelman, and this is the Unhappy Hour. We'll be right back with Zach.
You are listening to The New American Media.